senior officials here to recalibrate some of the things I believe are important for us. And it's the reason why we have convened here this morning to reaffirm, renew, and advance the transformative partnership between the government and the private sector, a partnership that remains central to Kenya's socio-economic transformation and sustainable national development. In December last year, during the 20th anniversary of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, I made a commitment to institutionalize regular presidential roundtables with the private sector. And we did agree that the ministry will do it quarterly, and I will do it every 6 months. And Minister Lee and his team will continue to do their bit. And if there are any issues that are urgent, that cannot wait for us to meet like we are doing today, they should be escalated to Lee and to myself, and we can be able to attend to those issues. These sessions provide a platform for candid reflection, where we engage, listen, and feel the pulse of enterprise in Kenya, ensuring that our partnership continues to deliver real, tangible, and measurable outcomes for the benefit of the economy of Kenya and the people of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to state without equivocation that if the Kenyan economy were a living body, its vital organs would confirm robust health. We are now ranked the 6th largest economy in Africa. Our inflation has declined significantly from 9.6% in 2002 to 4.1% last month. In fact, it was at 2.8% earlier this year, and we are well set on placing ourselves among the stable, vibrant economies in Africa. Strategic interventions in agriculture are delivering tangible results. Yields of maize, sugar, tea, coffee, milk, and others have risen by at least 50% in some cases, leading to reduced imports, higher farmer incomes, and enhanced food security for our country. You will remember that we have been a perennial importer of sugar. This year, we reduced our sugar importation by 70%. You also know that we've been importing even our staple food maize. We have reduced our imports of maize by 80%. And from the look of things, we will not be importing any maize this year or even into next year, because of the interventions that we have put in place and because God has been gracious to us and we have had some rain. The Kenya shilling has stabilized at 129 shillings to the dollar over a year. Meanwhile, foreign exchange reserves have grown from $6.5 billion to $11.8 billion, equivalent to 5 months of import cover. The Nairobi Securities Exchange, a key parameter of economic confidence and investor sentiment, has recorded a robust recovery. Market capitalization at the NSE now stands at Kenya shillings 2.5 trillion, reflecting renewed investor optimism, and it's because of our policy consistency. I salute the private sector for its indispensable and facilitative role in delivering public goods and services. One such example is the Affordable Housing Program, a flagship initiative that is transforming lives and reshaping our urban landscape. It has already created 320,000 jobs across the building and construction value chains now. And we had a conversation with the industry last week, and we are ramping up the numbers of people hired in this space to 600,000 in the next 2 months. We have decided to include a new shift to be able not just to accelerate the delivery of the markets, the hostels, and the affordable houses that we are constructing in that space, but to also reduce the time that we are that is spent on delivery of units, because we already have a pipeline of 700,000 housing units where we have identified land, we've done designs, and we are rolling out the construction. Through the localization of supply chains, we are creating impact and expanding opportunity. We have ring-fenced, for example, 11 billion shillings for the Juakali sector to manufacture key housing components, from doors to windows to hinges, and many fittings, stimulating grassroots enterprise, strengthening livelihoods, and anchoring economic growth in the communities that need it the most. I'm happy that this meeting is co-sponsored by the Juakali sector. And they have begun to wear suits. And they are now telling me they are no longer Juakali. You know, they are serious people. And in fact, some of them are saying they are now corporatized. You know, they have bank accounts and they also pay taxes. The private sector equally anchors core value chains, including agriculture, which employs over 40% of Kenyans, ICT and financial services, in which Kenya leads in innovation, and of course tourism, where accommodation and food services grew by 26% in Q2 of 2024, a powerful indicator of economic rebound. You're also aware that we are expanding our conference footprint and infrastructure with the development of the Bomas of Kenya that is underway to make sure that we can do more conferencing, and we are also expanding hotel capacity in the city with the construction by the private sector of another 3 hotels at the Bomas of Kenya that will be underway shortly, to make sure that Kenya becomes a truly conference destination. I take pride in the success of the Hustler Fund under the Financial Inclusion Fund, a pioneering empowerment initiative. In just under 3 years, it has disbursed over 72 billion to 26 million Kenyans, mobilized over Kenya shillings 5 billion in savings, and provided vital working capital to millions of micro entrepreneurs, proving that even the smallest businesses can thrive with the right support. Our critics, the naysayers, the perpetual pessimists, and the chorus that never sees anything working in Kenya would have you believe that the Hustler Fund is a failure, as it is indicated in today's newspapers. They say this because they either do not understand, or refuse to acknowledge the daily realities of millions of Kenyans this fund was designed to empower. Let me give you a background to the Hustler Fund. As a member of parliament, from my home to Eldoret town, there is a place called Mailitisa. And in this Mailitisa, people sell wares, roast maize, bananas, fruits, many things. And there is a fellow who comes there with 10,000 shillings. He lends somebody in the morning 100 shillings and waits for him in the evening. You have to pay 100 shillings plus 10% in the evening. 500 shillings, you pay him 10% with the 500 shillings in the evening. And that good man, sometimes called Shylock, does this on a daily basis. So there are Kenyans who pay 10% interest daily. What does that translate to in a year? You will calculate the numbers, right? So why we rolled out the Hustler Fund was for three fundamental reasons. And that is why we called it the Financial Inclusion Fund. It was not supposed to compete with banks. It wasn't meant to replace credit in banks. It was meant to correct a market failure, that there are people who banks and financial lenders cannot touch even with the longest pole that you can find. But they exist. They are not included in the financial system, and they need support. So we rolled out the Hustler Fund to attend and to include these micro entrepreneurs. You know, people who sit in offices that have air conditioning, speaking from Nairobi, in posh hotels, don't think 500 shillings matters to anybody, because they don't understand the hassles of small people. They don't understand what goes on in real Kenya, down there, where 500 shillings can make somebody earn a living, be able to put food on their table, and be able to go about their businesses. So what has the Hustler Fund achieved? We had three reasons why we rolled out the Hustler Fund. It was supposed to correct a market failure, which we did. We have removed 7 million Kenyans who were blacklisted in CRBs as a first step. We have now data of 26 million Kenyans. An exercise that would take, research, capacity building, those people called consultants. It would cost millions of shillings, hundreds of millions, to try and put this together. We have data on the credit behavior of 26 million Kenyans. We have 2 million Kenyans who wake up every morning to borrow money from the Hustler Fund. You should look at the dashboard of the Hustler Fund to know what is going on. We have now 650,000 Kenyans whose credit behavior has enabled them to progress into what we are calling bridge loan. Now they can borrow up to 150,000 without any collateral. The only collateral they have is their credit behavior, how they have behaved over the last 1 year. And my intention was to create another collateral system away from the traditional collateral of having a logbook or having a title deed or having an asset. Today, under the Hustler Fund, your credit behavior becomes your collateral. It becomes what licenses you to borrow the next bigger amount of money. 650,000 Kenyans are now in the bridge category. We have credit rating history of 26 million Kenyans. And we now have institutionalized another credit, another collateral mechanism that is not a title deed, that is not a logbook, but your credit ratings is what enables you to access. And for your information, banks now are beginning to absorb the people who have come through the Hustler Fund, because the banks can now look at their credit rating records and know that these are good borrowers. They may not have a title deed, they may not have a logbook, but they are good borrowers and they are well-behaved business people. So I want to persuade my good friends, the people who talk from Nairobi. They talk to us from posh hotels. They have money from this NGO and that NGO and the other one. Please, there are Kenyans who today have a mechanism for them to borrow money. And for your information, these small people who borrow 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, they have mobilized 5 billion shillings in savings over the last 3 years. 5 billion shillings in savings. There are people who would have wanted to save 20, 30, 40, 50 shillings a day. They did not have a mechanism on where to save without going into a place where their money could be lost. Now they have a mechanism under Hustler Fund that has the backstopping of the government of Kenya. They know their money is safe. And if they have mobilized 5 billion shillings in savings, micro, very small enterprise people who borrow 100, 500, 1,000 shillings, they do not deserve the condemnation that I see being leveled against them by some of the people in this space. To some of our friends, a micro loan of 1,000 seems too small to matter to anybody. But that is only because they have never walked in the shoes of those who were left at the margins of our society for far too long. They have never experienced the despair of being locked out of the financial system like millions of Kenyans have been for a long time, of having no credit history, no collateral, and no chance. That's what Hustler Fund is affording. And now, those same critics are spreading fear and despondency by falsely claiming that the fund has a 60% default rate. That is a deliberate distortion of facts. The truth, backed by data, is that the Hustler Fund has a recovery rate of 83.3%, nearly identical to that of formal banking sector, whose repayment rates stands at 83.6%. So what exactly are these people telling us? That ordinary, hard-working Kenyans are serial defaulters? Of course they are not. Kenyans are better than that. Kenyans are honest. Kenyans are resilient. Given the right tools and a fair chance, Kenyans will always do their part. I want to say that we will not be distracted. Those who, when facts do not serve their agenda, resort to fabricating narratives to prop up their falsehood. We understand, we remain unchallenged in building a new, inclusive, fair, equitable society. And I count on the private sector as essential allies and collaborators in this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, I have received a comprehensive list of priority issues for government consideration. But I want to hear it from you in person. I want you to tell me what is working, because there are many things that are working. And I also want to tell you what is not working so well and what is not working at all, so that we can continuously recalibrate this space. We've come here to listen to you. And the purpose of government is to assist the private sector, to create the environment for the private sector to do what they know how to do best. Whether it is in our affordable housing program, I'm very happy with the hundreds of companies run by Kenyans who are undertaking the construction of the affordable houses, the markets, the hostels that are changing our skyline in Kenya. You know, the good news about this program is that 100% of the contractors in our housing program are Kenyan contractors. 100%. That makes me very proud that whatever you see in Mukuru or in every large town today around Kenya, you will see that the skyline is changing because of affordable housing. But that is the work of Kenyan companies. I assure you of my personal commitment and that of the entire government to address them with speed and clarity and purpose. Towards this end, and to further strengthen the business environment, the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will expedite the submission of the Business Laws Amendment Bill 2025 to the Cabinet by the end of this month. This will fast-track legal issues identified by the business sector that were not part of the Finance Bill 2025. The Prime Cabinet Secretary will coordinate with Parliament to finalize all pending business-related legislation in Parliament by December this year. And the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will fully implement a digital one-stop center to anchor business climate issues at the Kenya Investments Authority by June next year. The Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will anchor the ministerial stakeholder forums with the private sector every quarter going forward and will better coordinate the issues raised by the private sector. That said, ladies and gentlemen, we must also be realistic. We must not be distracted by the few who would rather see Kenya remain as it is instead of what it could become. We may not solve every issue at once or overnight, but every step forward is meaningful progress. Let us continue to innovate and to relentlessly refine as we commit to building a nation that is fueled by public-private partnership, powered by enterprise, anchored in equity, and driven by a shared purpose to uplift everybody. We will continue to engage with you and look at what other interventions that are necessary. Let me stop here because it was not my intention to make a speech. My intention today was to come and listen to what you have to say. And as I said, to tell me what is working so that we can accelerate, what is not working so well so that we can correct, and what has not started so that we can find a way of beginning. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Excellency, for those candid comments, and allow me to take this opportunity now to usher us to the next stage, where I will invite the CEO of KEPSA, Carol, to kindly come and make a few comments, and then we move to the next session. This is your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Honorable William Samoei Ruto, the President of Kenya, all protocols observed, and all the captains of industry, government officials, stand on the protocols that had been mentioned earlier. And I just want to say karibuni on behalf of the ministry partnership that we've worked together to put this together. As the President said in the morning, this is a bit different from our issue roundtables. And I know the next one will go back and resume back to how we have met and continue to do that. But as we move to the next session, which is the dialogue session, as much we've tried to see how we can still have dialogue, so we'll make it like more of a fireside chat. And we'll focus on two areas. One, the progress report. And as the President said, sometimes I think we are caught up in a lot of what's not working, we forget what's working. And I think today there'll be some good news, because in the last 4 roundtables that we had, the President last year focused on areas like tourism and labor, manufacturing, ICT, financial services, and agriculture sectors. We had 8 of 66 issues that were presented, and we got 76 commitments out of those 68 issues. 19 have been completed, 57 are in progress and good progress, and we'll be mentioning that, which is and then only 4 will require your intervention, Your Excellency, in the sense we need to give a commitment, because we didn't get to the commitment stage in those 4, and that's what we'll be going into in the fireside chat as I go through that. But then there are sectors that we didn't go through, and that's health, energy, education, infrastructure, and land, and I hope the next roundtable in State House will be covering that. Then today we'll focus on trade. And it's an interesting time, and I'll call the chair to really mention on that. And really, it's because there's a new world trade order in town. And so we have to organize ourselves in a certain way if we're going to be competitive. And so that's why we are focused today. So where the partners you see, the associations you see down here who are members of KEPSA, are the ones who came together and said, what are the areas that we can look at trade that will make us competitive? KEPSA has 134 associations, giving us a reach of over 2 million businesses. And we hope once a year, beyond the roundtables, Your Excellency, at the end of every year, you can have a chance to meet representatives for all these associations and businesses, so that we can look back and say, what have we achieved in the year? And we can be the ambassadors to the rest of the country of what we are doing as a country, because we are stakeholders, we are partners with government. So I really emphasize that apart from the 2 roundtables, that the last roundtable at the end of the year will be a meeting of only progress with the whole business community. And then we're so very grateful for reestablishing again the ministerial stakeholder forums. And I know some of the ministers we worked with very closely, like the Minister of Transport, who's here, Davis Chilchi, remembers those ministerial stakeholder forums and the things we were able to achieve. And so I'm so grateful, and hope every ministry will now meet regularly on this ministerial stakeholder forum, so that by the time we are coming to you, it's very key issues that are national, regional, and international that we need to resolve together, and not the everyday issues of VAT refunds and energy is not working for manufacturers, for tourism, for retailers, and all that. So with those few remarks, I would really want to ask that Your Excellency and the CS, you'd come to stage. We'll sit here, we'll go through the issues, and then I will ask the key people from these partners of trade associations and the ones that worked on the trade issues. Then they'll ask the different questions and recommendations, and we can have a dialogue on that. So that's where we're going to start, and then I'll call the chair once we finish with the progress report. So, Your Excellency, if you don't mind, and the CS of Trade. So in terms of progress report, in tourism and labor, and I'll go very quickly so that we save time and go to the 9 issues of trade today. We had one of the issues was trade beach boys at the beach. And in terms of progress, I'll not go into what was committed because I'll just go straight to the progress. The code of conduct for beach operators is being finalized, and the beach traders have been encouraged to form cooperatives for self-regulation and funding. So that's in progress, Your Excellency. And the things on in progress, if there's anything, Your Excellency, you'd like to add in terms of commitment, then we can do that. The other one was keeping parks as premium product, and I know you challenged us about Masai Mara, and industry players are working with KWS on the minimum conditions for licensing so that we keep it as a premium. M-Pesa payments that need to be paid directly to the pay bill 222 without having to log into eCitizen, that was done. And then allowing the airline to access Mombasa and Eastern Europe, the application was done, and so that's done. So that's the Istanbul, Nairobi daily flights are now going to start happening for Qatar Airways application for direct flights Doha, Mombasa is in progress. An MOU was signed between KQ and Qatar Airways for code sharing and launch of the direct flights. The other one was consideration of waiving electronic travel authorization in progress. On 31st January, the cabinet waived the ETA requirement for all African citizens, and multi-entry ETA and expedited processing have been operationalized. Pending bills, the tourism sector, like many other sectors, has a lot of pending bills, and that's in progress.
So that we don't come back to them, I think Dave is here as a progress report on flights, the flights that I think the industry wanted us to provide more additional capacity, give more airlines opportunity to carry especially cargo out of Kenya, because I think the cost of cargo was uncompetitive. Is that what was the issue? So Davis, we have made some progress. Can Davis report to us some progress on that?
Thank you, Your Excellency. Like has been mentioned with Turkish Airline and Qatar Airline, Your Excellency, we've done some significant work, including what has been mentioned with respect to signing code sharing. And as Kenyans, Your Excellency, what we learned in this industry is, albeit the challenges we have with our own airline, we can leverage on our established airspace and development in the aerospace industry in Kenya to negotiate for things like code sharing and ensure that even when we do not have enough aeroplanes to basically facilitate the freighters, the challenge that we've had with the green produce, where the cost of freight, you could consider it to be a low-value item because the cost per kilogram of vegetable and the cost of electronics, Your Excellency, the freighters would tend to shift to high-value freight and leave us disparate. So inside of the code sharing and some of the things we are doing with Kenya Airways to leverage on the Kenya advantage would be to ensure that we take advantage of the fact that whereas we have electoral transport agreements, and whereas we may not have equipment to basically reciprocate the kind of frequencies that would actually demand of other airlines. We are now negotiating on code sharing and therefore being able to leverage on our own advantage and ensure that we push for advantage for our local market. And so we are doing a lot of work, even as we speak today, with Fly Dubai, with the Emirates, so that as we allow more frequencies, we ensure that we address the challenges that we have in the freighters and therefore be able to uptake most of our green produce, albeit the challenge of the value of green produce vis-a-vis the high-value electronics, where freighters tend to migrate when the freight volumes are of significant value around Christmas time in other markets. So a lot of work has been...
Davis, can you speak specifically to how many extra flights are there now? I think we have 3 or 4 or 5 extra flights one to Gatwick, which we approved, and I was there in London when it met the inaugural flight. We have other flights that have been allowed to ease the burden of exports from Kenya, or exporters.
Thank you, Your Excellency. With specifics to BA, they did apply for frequencies into Nairobi from Heathrow, and we allowed them 3 additional frequencies. We have 3 additional frequencies per week into Gatwick, and within these frequencies, we basically really drilling down to take advantage of the challenge, like I said, where we don't have enough equipment. Like has been mentioned by Carol, we now have the frequencies into Istanbul by Turkish Airlines, and of course, the code sharing work that we are doing. You know, Your Excellency, what it means is that we can actually sell airline tickets on KQ and you can fly Qatar. And therefore, we are saying you don't necessarily, as a country with very developed airspace or aerospace, you don't necessarily need to have enough equipment to take the number of passengers or the freighters that we need. We could actually sell tickets and fly on an airline that we share, that we have code sharing. And therefore, ground handling issues where we could be handling, doing ground handling for Emirates, for Fly Dubai, for all these other airlines, and therefore be able to build our own industry as we continue to collaborate, albeit the BASA requirements. So, Your Excellency, a lot of work is happening in that space. We have a meeting tomorrow just to finish between the Minister for Tourism, the Minister for Trade, and the Minister for Agriculture to also look at what are we losing sometimes when we don't quite give frequencies that have been requested of us as a country to other airlines, because we could be seen to be overprotecting KQ, Kenya Airways, without due consideration for the tourism sector, the trade, and the agricultural sector, fresh produce. So we'll be looking at data to be able to really deploy a more scientific way of allowing frequencies and ensuring that even as we secure our interest in KQ, we are able to support tourism, support trade, and support agriculture. Thank you.
What is the industry feel? What are we doing enough? Are we not? What does the industry think?
The
flower,
chair,
yes.
the chair of Kenya Tourism Federation is right there.
Okay, the chair.
Then the Flower Council is also
then the
here.
Flower Council can give us some feedback.
Morning, everyone. I would like to read the protocols, Mr. President. Our concern, I'm happy that my CS is here. Our concern mostly is to implore the government to open frequencies into Mombasa. You will not grow tourism in Mombasa if you don't allow direct charters into Mombasa to boost on the numbers. As we see today, I think we have 3 charters already working. There's been a lot of conversation about TUI charter, which I think was not granted. TUI group was not granted. I think the application they had, the first one was not correct. The second application that we would request the government to help them do is the charter, not a scheduled flight, but a charter. If you can offer them that charter, it will actually boost the numbers in Mombasa. We also need to go back to one more issue. You will not be able to get value for tourism in Mombasa, Diani, and Malindi until you correct the issue of beach boys. Why is that so? Your competition, Zanzibar, Mauritius, Seychelles, have got more what I would call cleaner beaches than what we have on our side. We have got the best beaches, but the fact that our beaches allow trade actually at the floor of the beach, it actually keeps away tourists. So we are really, really requesting that we go back to the issue of beach boys, figure out if we can have a common market away from the beach line, move them there, and allow the hotels to now upgrade their beaches to be able to attract higher markets.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
A flower council, and then we will take both of them in one shot. Who is the flower council person?
Oh,
Yes.
thank you very much, His Excellency. My name is Ogambi. I work for the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa. I want to start by appreciating the response by Honorable the CS in terms of what's being done. I would like to speak the issue of limited capacity, especially during the peak seasons. And this is occasioned often when freighters leave the country for more lucrative routes. And this affects the price, reliability, and availability of capacity for exports. What that entails is, His Excellency, is the exporter is not certain of getting capacity at the JKA, and also has to incur increased costs for exports. So what are we asking, His Excellency? We are asking that the government considers short-term approval for freighters, especially during the peak seasons, so that this mitigates the gap and also assures the exporters that there's capacity for their produce. Needless to mention, and which is very important, we appreciate the government going into agreement with various countries, and EPA provides us with an enormous opportunity for exports. Now, we could get the markets, but without the transport, without the freighters, then you're not able to achieve much on this. Secondly, His Excellency, is the issue about direct flights. A number of flights have to go through various routes before they go to the destination market. We are seeking of the government to consider and expedite approvals for direct freighters to the markets. And then lastly, His Excellency, the issue of cost. The fuel cost, the parking fees, and related costs at JKI are extremely expensive, so to speak. So we need to moderate this to ensure that we are able to attract more freighters that can sustain the exports of our produce. I thank you and I submit.
Thank you. So, Rebecca, do you want to say something about the, let me just, before Rebecca responds, since the last time we had a conversation about the beach boys and our beaches, has there been any progress? Has there been, have you engaged the ministry? Have you engaged the other stakeholders so that we can know? Because there must be an engagement, you know, because we cannot wake up one morning and tell everybody to leave. We need to have a structured way of doing this. Do you have any suggestions on how this can be done so that we can work together towards doing this? We don't mind, even if we have to build markets. You know, we have a whole program of building markets. We can dedicate certain areas where tourists can go, organize them into a proper market so that it is not littered all over the place.
I do know for a fact that we've spoken to the county government officials. I start with Mombasa. And if you check with Mombasa County, there's a piece of land that already bought during the Balala's tenure. And that land is actually government land in your hands that was meant to move Beach Boys to that as a market area. The problem is that after the land was bought, it was never developed. So that land is sitting there idle. So if you check with the team, they'll tell you where the land is. We've spoken both to Kwale County on the same issue. Kwale has the problem they have that they don't have an allocated space to take them. So as an industry, we cannot engage the Beach Boys if there is no place to take them, because that's a livelihood they're actually aching from that area. So what we are requesting, that's why we're coming direct now to you, not the county officials, that we have a policy to work with a proper plan on where are they going. As far as it stands right now, we cannot engage them because there is no place marked for them to go.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Rebecca, do you want to say something about this?
Thank you, Your Excellency. On the matter of the Beach Boys, I want to confirm that we were in Mombasa 3 weeks ago with the private sector. The progress that has been made, the county assembly now has a bill that has been tabled. That is the beach management bill, and the code of conduct has been drafted. And therefore, on the legislative side, progress is very good. In terms of then a marketplace, it is true that there is a piece of land. We are working with the private sector, and we are working with Mombasa County, the tourism police unit, to sort out some encroachment. I also confirm that we have some money in the budget to sort out, including the lighting for the evening. And as has been reported, there is a proposal to organize the traders there, the Beach Boys, into cooperatives and organized entities so that we can sort out this matter. But a lot of weightlifting is with the Mombasa County government, but we are working together with the county government.
Okay. I hope you understand that there is need for collaboration between the national and the county governments. There is demonstrable progress because I think they also realize the importance of organizing the beach people into organized groups that we can support. Maybe what I can offer is if there are any challenges with resources to put up decent places for the beach people to carry out their business, between Rebecca and her colleague Alice Wahome, they should be able to find the resources to do a beach market for them. And we can do that as of immediate. We will then take some homework so that we can accelerate the work that is being done by the county government, so that it's not just in Mombasa. We can do the same with Kwale, we can do the same with Kilifi, and see how we can better organize that space. And so maybe in our December engagement, we should be able to give these good people some progress report. I would also suggest that the hoteliers in that industry should not fold their hands. You know, that is your ecosystem. There is a lot of social engineering that you can do with the Beach Boys. There is a lot that you can engage with them so that it is not us versus them. We need to find a way that we bring them on board so that they become part of the solution rather than, you know, a confrontation. I would suggest that we do that, and I will take it up with the counties responsible, with the governors, so that we can see what we can do. But Rebecca will take up that, and let's report some progress before the end of this year. Davis, do you want to speak to the issues that were raised? They have asked basically three things. They have said that there is a TUI fellow charter. What are we doing about charters? You know, that's number one. We need to speak directly to charters. Number two, is it possible for us to have short-term, approvals when during the peak season, so that we can have enough space and enough carriage capacity for our products into the market destinations? And then number three, is it true that maybe the fees that are charged are higher than other destinations? Can you maybe speak to those three things?
Thank you, Your Excellency. TUI applied for to come in as a charter. TUI is a flight out of Netherlands, Your Excellency, and we did allow them as a charter. But I think by the time they finished the schedules they had applied for under the charter, they continued to fly in at that time without due approvals. And we then stopped them because if they wanted to do scheduled flights, they needed to do that kind of application. And so we don't have a problem with TUI. We have since regularized we then regularized their charter. They have lately applied for schedule to Mombasa, and we are looking at that, and we don't have a problem with TUI. But like I said earlier, Your Excellency, and like I reported to you about 2 weeks ago, we've had a few meetings with my colleagues from trade, Lee, of course, Kagwe, Rebecca, and myself with the industry, to basically, with Kenyans, to basically confirm when we are giving out schedules, do we take advantage of our competitiveness? And therefore, when tourism is pushing us to allow a charter, are we taking advantage only of tourism, equally taking advantage of freights, because a number of the flights they bring in will have enough belly bottom to be able to freight out some of the green produce. So what we'll be doing tomorrow is receiving a report from the technical teams to basically assure ourselves that when frequencies are applied for, we don't deny because we are overprotecting our own airline or we are overprotecting another airline at the expense of freights or tourism and so on, or KQ for that matter. So we don't have a problem with TUI. We are reviewing the application they have made this time to have scheduled flights into Mombasa. But last time they overstepped the approval where they were given the charter and they went on schedule again as the bilateral air service agreement that was approved for that. And therefore, Your Excellency, to basically sum it all, we also learned that these frequencies are very competitive because they only come in when there is the business is very high and they leave us down when the business is not good. And therefore, we are seeking to basically strike a balance through some of the things we are doing in code sharing and ensure that in spite of the challenge that we may not have enough equipment as KQ, they are able to basically come in on a win-win. And so that we do not only have freighters happening during the peak period, and therefore during the low season, we don't have that support. So as we negotiate and agree, we're really seeking to protect the interests of the industry and ensure that during the high, they don't just skim, and during the low period, we are left without the freighters. So we'll be having a meeting tomorrow with my colleagues to basically look at a number of these issues. They are actually, like I mentioned, Your Excellency, we are a very, very attractive destination. And sometimes the politics in the freight industry, where one airline may not want competition and influence a case of not approving one airline frequencies, again, so that anti-competitive practices. So as we do this, Your Excellency, let me assure the industry that we will ensure that the interest of the market, and that's why in allowing frequencies, I've brought in Lee Kinyanjui, I've brought in Kagwe and Rebecca to balance the interest, and of course KQ to balance the interest of the industry of the country in allowing frequencies and ensuring that we take the best of our tourism, we take the best of our green produce, and then so on and so forth.
Short-term allowance for during the peak season, is that something?
That's not a problem at all, because we need to then pick up on the period like now when we are getting into the wild beast migration. And yes, we are allowing, and that's, for example, why BA has applied for the 3 additional frequencies.
What about short-term allowance for the peak season for flowers and all the other cargo? I think that's what they were more interested in.
In fact, the biggest challenge, Your Excellency, and we don't have serious regulations for cargo, for freighters. The biggest challenge is the value of our freights. The value on freighting flowers is between $1.5 to $2 for the flower industry to make money. But you will compare that with the freighters in high-value electronics, where they charge up to $8. And therefore, they leave us low and migrate to the high-value freights. And this is why, as we negotiate for some of the buses, we are seeking to take advantage of our attractiveness to make sure that they don't leave us down when we need them.
Okay.
I thank you.
One more thing you have not responded to. Is our destination more expensive than other destinations in terms of fees charged and all that?
Let's review that when we meet, Your Excellency.
Okay.
I thank you.
All right. So what I'm gathering from Davis is that there is already an industry-wide engagement, and there is need for a balance between the interests of the tourism industry, who want to bring in passengers, the interest of the Ministry of Agriculture and Trade, who want to lift cargo out of Kenya. And we want whatever frequencies that are made available in the flight space to help us sort out our challenge, so that those bringing tourists must also help us lift our cargo into the destinations that we want, and vice versa. So I think that is the balance that we need to strike. And that is why I think the Ministry of Transport has invited Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Trade, and Ministry of Agriculture into a conversation together with Kenya Airways and the private sector, so that we can strike a balance and find an equilibrium between the interest of the various sectors. I'm told the Flower Council need to say something. Who is speaking on behalf of the Flower Council?
Teles is there, the CEO of Kenya Flower Council.
Where is
The chair is also here.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, CS. We really appreciate that effort, and we also appreciate that the meeting that CS Transport mentioned took place, and Kenya Flower Council was the only private sector body invited. So we appreciate that the work has started and the conversation is ongoing. With the flights for tourism, every single flight is a massive benefit. 787, the Dreamliner, can add 10 to 15 tons of cargo. Each A350 is close to 20 tons, and every 777 is another 25 tons. So every single effort on tourism helps us as an industry, and we also help those airlines make those flights viable commercially by filling them. So we really appreciate that effort, and we hope we can continue to work with the government.
So in short, you are saying you support the effort to try and synergize what the frequencies we do in tourism, that they should be able to help us also lift cargo out of Kenya. And you think that engagement is correct? Okay, David, so proceed, and please involve the industry as much as you can. Sorry, I think we have taken longer than we should, but I think so that we can make progress.
That's fine. At least we are resolving the things on progress. So I'll move to the manufacturing sector. But even as I move there, Your Excellency, because something came up, I think CS Chilchil mentioned about certain players. I think it's something we are seeing cross-cutting in different industries. And I think what we could ask government is to work with the established bodies on the harmonized positions, so that we avoid players who go around the established organizations and make shortcuts. So, and I think we've seen that Parliament has also come to us on the same in terms of during finance bill, and really it's something I think we really want whole government to adopt. You know, when it's cross-cutting issues, we always bring harmonized positions as KEPSA. When it's sectoral issues, the sectors do bring harmonized issues as sectors. So we just had to avoid the individual ones because they really mess even for government when that happens. So I really wanted to just mention that. So when we move to the manufacturing issues in terms of progress, the ones that were discussed, the first one was unpredictable tax regime. What has been done, the tax administration taxation issue has been resolved through the tax amendment laws in December 2024. I think what's really in progress, and I would like to see it fast-tracked, is adoption of the national taxation policy. And if that one is adopted, I think to start resolving that issue. The other one that is in progress around that is that there was a follow-up meeting with the manufacturers to assess the status of the implementation of this on 27th June. And so we really would like to see that moving faster. The second one is the distribution fees and branding fees across counties. What has been progressed so far, KEPSA was involved in the formulation of the regulations to operationalize the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Act 2024. And then also what is in progress is the county regulatory toolkit is being developed. This is being strengthened to include national regulatory requirements. So that we've done, we've engaged. I think it's just now the finalization and adoption so that we can see harmonization of the distribution fees and the branding fees. At the regulations that were involved in were the County Licensing Procedures Act by the Senate. Yeah, so that we've done that. Then the other issue was the hindrance in installation of other power source for industry. We got involved as KEPSA in the formulation of, again, the same act. And what we need resolution from this PRT is the Energy Net Metering Regulation 2024 do not cover installation exceeding 1 megawatt, and therefore lacks provision for streamlining or setting timelines for the approval process for large-scale industrial self-generation systems. I think we only approved up to 1. We didn't look at the big ones. So I think that's what we'll need resolution in this. But that other one was done, and we really appreciate that. Then on the same, we had the low uptake of time of use tariff due to stringent conditions set. What is in progress is the EPRA agreed to review the tariffs with a new tariff to be published in 2026. The review process commenced in 2025, and we're involved in that. The other issue around manufacturing, the high cost of credit and capital, and I know this we discussed. We talked about the new funding to Kenya Development Corporation to support manufacturers and SMEs, and this is done. So at least that's in that's something that we'll be able to report and say how is it working, because that's already been done. On the VAT refunds,
just wait before you go there. I think there are 3 issues you have mentioned, which you have said something about the industry being organized and engaging with both the National Assembly and government as a unit, rather than individuals or individual companies short-circuiting the system. I don't know how we deal with that. I think you should help us as industry to stop your members. That's the reality. To stop your members from short-circuiting the system. Because what happens is your members, instead of using this formal channel that we have established with industry to process the issues that the industry wants to be done, either by government through legislation or through policy or through executive intervention, you should circuit the system. I must tell you, many of your members bribe committees of parliament.
That's so true.
That's the reality. So in the process, you should circuit this engagement, and we end up with legislation, policy, taxes that are skewed, that eventually distorts everything we are trying to do. So as an industry, you should get your members to engage with government, with the executive, with the legislature in the formal channels that we have established. Yeah. I will be having a meeting with members of parliament on this very subject. We'll be having a meeting with members of parliament in this very subject, because it is a source of concern that companies or individuals influence, committees in parliament, influence chairs of committees in parliament or officials. We end up then with a distorted, policy environment, because they end up serving individual companies, not the sector. So the sector also, surely, you must be people of integrity, because if you engage with us in these formal channels, when you don't get what you want, you then go behind this whole thing and then create other things behind us. Then you defeat the very purpose of this formal engagement. So, I don't know whether you should be telling me or I should be telling you. I will do my portion because I need to engage Parliament, but also you should speak to your membership so that we stick to the formal channels. That is number one. Number two, a predictable policy environment. The tax law policy that is currently in progress. I'm happy that you have engaged with Parliament. We will fast track. In fact, that is part of my statement I said earlier. The Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary is the one responsible for engagement between the executive and the legislature. That we will engage so that we can expedite that space. Again, we should also ensure that there are minimal requests by the industry to change policy positions. Because the other problem is when industry themselves come and say, okay, we want you to change this tax regime, and yet you have asked us, you want a predictable space. That request to change the policy environment undermines the stability of that policy. So we should all agree that when we have agreed that this is the position, we allow it to crystallize at least for 3 to 5 years so that we can have a predictable environment. Lastly, is on your engagement with the Senate on matters to do with branding and licensing so that we can formalize. You have my 100 support on that.
Thank you.
And I will ask my officials to see to it, because it's a matter that we agreed to. We should just process the issues in the legislature, and we will try and push the legislature to expedite on those issues. Finally, there is a matter you have said about funding, and I have my CEO of KIDC here. Can you tell us something about what we agreed with this team and what is the progress on that? Do you have the progress, Carol, or you want her to speak to it?
So we did engage, and I think maybe now she can tell us where they've reached.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Kenya Development Corporation has set aside funds to focus on manufacturing. Your Excellency, this is one of the key focus areas of our strategic plan, the manufacturing sector. We have gone ahead to try and resource various credit lines in order to support the manufacturing sector. So we are looking at countries where our manufacturers are actually exporting to or importing from, to try and negotiate various lines. Currently, this financial year, Your Excellency, what we're looking at is about Kenya shillings 3 billion in terms of internally resourced money. Equally, we've received about 4 billion Kenya shillings that we shall be channeling through various financial institutions to SACCOs, to microfinance institutions and tier 2 and 3 financial banks, so that they're able to support also manufacturers that are not able to directly access from us. But Your Excellency, we have the 15 million Indian credit line that we are seeking enhancement to about 250 million. We're in discussion with the National Treasury on this enhancement. Equally, we have negotiated with Saudi Exim. We hope that we can also close on another credit line that will also support manufacturers and exporters. So that is currently what we're working on, Your Excellency. Thank you.
So I think, Madam CEO, maybe we need a broader engagement with the private sector and with industry so that they can better understand what you're doing from that space. So that I think a broader engagement, I like what you're saying, that you have engaged, and the industry should look at the opportunities that are available, because this is credit that we are making available that is not commercial. Is it commercial? It's not commercial. It is concessionary financing to support the industry. I am happy to look for government resources to do more in that space if the industry aligns with what we are doing. Apart from the resources we are getting from different development partners, we can commit our own resources as GOK through Kenya Development Corporation. We can even de-risk some of the investments that you want to do by taking a stake, even if it is 20%, and putting in our money. Do you understand that, Madam?
Yes.
Yeah, we should be able to do that, especially on the critical sectors that maybe industry is not very comfortable. We can put our resources, de-risk some of your investments over time, and then we can walk out when the investment is stable and the industry is comfortable. So I think, Lee, you should be able to pursue that. We can approve maybe 10, 15, 20 billion shillings into KDIC to help industry get concessional funding, but also we can de-risk some of the investments they want to make in growing our industrial capacity.
Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you, Excellency. On the VAT refunds, I know earlier we had talked about one of the things was to start looking at the big exporters and see if we can also have a different system. But I must say we had asked for an offset system of any VAT refunds over 6 months, and that has been done. What is in progress, and we need a resolution in the Finance Act 2025. The refund period moved from 90 to 120 days, and that makes it a bit harder for business. So maybe we need a different resolution here to see if we can return it to 90 days, but also look at offset across different tax classes, because that is also work in progress. We've been engaging KRA. They're very happy to look at it, but because it's an issue that had come to the PRT, we felt as part of progress would mention what has been done and what is in progress. On the issue of securing bilateral, multilateral...
Do you know the reason why it moved from 90 to 120? Was there a reason? Was there a reason? Lee, did you? It was a cash flow issue. Okay, so can you explain to me? Because the last time, what we did, what is decided, and I hope Eden from my office is here. What we decided last time was, let us allow those claiming VAT, if your VAT returns hasn't been paid 6 months, and it has been agreed, it has been documented and verified, you can net off from your other taxes.
Yes.
What I hear you saying is that was done.
Yes.
Yeah, that was done. We passed the law, and you can now do that. And there are people who are doing that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, you want us to do more.
I think when we presented that,
I think there was a fellow called Oliver Twist.
no, what is in progress is looking at with the with the Finance Act of 2025, moving now from 90 days to 120, even for the refunds, that creates a new challenge. And we felt because we had already agreed on the other one, how do we resolve this in this meeting? Because it was part of this meeting.
Okay, so the gentleman from my office, let us do this. Let us, and we'll engage with Treasury to find out why this moved. And Lee, you should be able to take it up on behalf of the industry. I hear you also saying that maybe we should allow the netting of VAT from even other tax obligations.
Yes, they're tax classes because they're different tax classes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is something I am willing to consider. We should be able to consider that because I think it helps industry. So let us look at 3 things, you know, and we will report back in December. Number 1, we allow industry to net off using other tax classes.
Yes.
That's number 1. Number 2, I hear you saying, let us increase the allocation from 2.5 billion every month
To 5 billion.
to 5 billion. That is another homework. We will take it back and look at what does that mean to us in terms of our other tax obligations. So those 2. Any other thing? And then this shift.
The ceiling from a maximum of 30 million to higher, because there are those with higher claims beyond the 30 million a month.
Big exporters, some of them have bigger claims, more than 30 million a month, and the ceiling is 30 million.
Okay. And thirdly, we find a way of either creating an exemption for the bigger people, for the bigger exporters whose tax VAT refunds are higher. So those are the 3 things, Eden, we go back with. We will then have Lee engage with the Treasury, and then we will come back to you in December.
Okay, thank you very much. I think on that, there was also the 0 rating for inputs for manufacturers of pharmaceuticals and agricultural sectors to ensure manufacturers are competitive and increase exports. So the proposals were included in the finance bill, but they were not captured in the act. So we had them included in the bill out of what had been agreed in this meeting, but then were not captured in the act. So maybe we need to look at them. How do we deal with them now that they're not in the act of the finance bill?
How possible is it? It's not possible for it to be in the finance bill and not, because the act becomes, the bill becomes an act by operation of Parliament and my signature. So how did it disappear?
Your Excellency, I think what Carol is alluding to is the fact that sometimes amendments do happen and they do not take into consideration the original thinking and the intention. And I think this also goes to explain between myself and the Minister for Finance, we had very clear proposals drawing from them, the industry. But again, when you take it there, some amendments happen that completely water down. And I think this is within the broader area you have already mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's just that because it was here and we had agreed with you that that's what will happen. So it was captured in the bill, but when the amendments were done. And then the other one under manufacturing was the raw materials and intermediary products used in manufacturing. So what has progressed is the tripartite agreement has been ratified, and awareness campaigns targeting private sector are underway. So that's very helpful. Then there's also alignment in domestic tax on raw materials and immediate inputs under SCTNEWS. Best practices still under consideration at that level. So the next time there is that meeting, that just to ensure that we are not losing as Kenya. So that's good progress in that sense. Then packaging used for essential goods, in particular the white kraft paper, to be exempted from tax. The issue was submitted as private sector budget priority proposal for consideration through the Finance Act 2025. Again, it was a consideration, so we are really hoping that it will not, though it never saw the light of the day, that it's something that we can work on.
That is not the position that I have.
I have the CEO of KAM here. He can even say
Yes,
a bit on the
because
details.
our undertaking when we met was we are going to remove taxes on packaging material
Yes.
for tea, coffee, and all that space, which was done. And I signed it into law. Is that correct, Waziri? That is correct. So, so what is the matter, Bwana?
Thank you, Your Excellency. The major thing in terms of the packaging material that was omitted is called the kraft paper.
Can you first confirm?
Yes.
What I said, whether
Yes,
it's correct?
Yes, that's correct. That is correct.
What is correct?
That there were exemptions given for packaging material for export. However, there is a tariff line of an item called kraft paper that is used for packaging materials for export. The duty on this material has been increased because there is excise duty imposed, there is export investment promotion levy of 10% imposed on this item, so it becomes very expensive. Our counterpart in the region producing the same paper produce it at a cheaper price. So we, who are locals, who are producing the same product, are very competitive. That is the challenge.
So it's a specific, but you see, the problem with being too specific is that this could be somebody's business, and he's trying to use us to,
Your Excellency,
so we have to be careful.
we did a national verification.
Yes.
With the MIT involved, National Treasury involved, to confirm that this type of material is not locally manufactured.
Okay.
So in that sense, it should not be imposed with the tax that was imposed.
All right. So I will pick it up with Waziri here. We have done, I thought we completed the whole thing. Maybe there was a particular item that wasn't captured. Waziri here has my instructions to make sure that it is captured, and even if it means we have to do a small intervention in the interim, we can do that with the Ministry of
Thank you
of Finance.
Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you very much. On agriculture for industry, I think one of the things that we were resolving was the issue of value chains, and especially manufacturers to support the offtake crops as sunflower, pyrethrum, potato, tomato, and rice. One of the things that is in progress and good progress, on 30th April 2025, the government of Kenya and Thika Clothing launched a 1.2 billion cotton ginning and oil extraction factory at Lamu Port. So that's very good progress from that decision that was made. Another priority value chains are on the discussion are ongoing, and a framework will be drawn. So at least something has already happened from that discussion, and hopefully the other value chains will see a lot more. The broader discussion was agriculture for industry. Yeah, so we talked about cotton, we talked about pyrethrum, we talked about sunflower. So already the cotton one, we've seen one uptick that has been done, and hopefully we'll see more upticks around that.
Maybe I will also report to you that by Friday, and Lee, you should ensure, by Friday, we are signing off the agreement for a private sector person to take over Rivertex, so that again, we can be able to have an off-taker, bringing the private sector into the equation so that we can have an off-taker that also provides seeds and planting material to farmers and provide a predictable off-taker of cotton products that feeds into the whole chain of textile industry, because Rivertex has huge capacity of textile, production of textile. So I think you are well seized, and Treasury and your ministry will facilitate. By this Friday, we finish that program.
Much obliged.
Thank you very much. And even part of that, the county aggregation and industrial parks, we've had a meeting again with Kenya Development Corporation and meeting, and we'll be having a conference so that we showcase which ones should be taken up, so that we can fast track that process and we can see many industries take that. So that again is very good progress. On the special economic zones, I know, Your Excellency, we had discussed earlier on how really to ensure that we are not having many small ones, because then we will not fill them, and maybe work with a maximum of 4 to 5 in the country, and then maybe have industrial parks. We also appreciate the merger that was approved by Cabinet, again, as part of this conversation between SCZ and EPZ, which is, again, a reform process that is ongoing. I think part of this also in progress is the fast tracking of the food and feed safety condition bill to help facilitate shipments, so that those who are investing in the special economic zones, we can work on the export side of things. So there's progress also on that.
Maybe on the county aggregation and industrial parks, and together with the special economic zones, I want to persuade industry and the private sector to tap into the opportunities that come with the expanded space in the special economic zones and the county aggregation and industrial parks. Lee here will confirm to you that I think by September, 13 county aggregation and industrial parks will be ready out of the 45. We are expecting industry to work with us in operationalizing these county aggregation industrial parks, so that you can work with us together with other actors in defining what kind of common user facilities do we need in these spaces? What kind of primary value addition is required, and therefore what kind of equipment is required? Once we have acquired the facilities, the value addition capabilities, these should not be operationalized by government. It should be done by the private sector, either through cooperatives or SACCOs or other, or even individual private sector players who can lease these facilities and get our value addition program underway. These facilities, much as we are developing in conjunction with counties, it is for the private sector. We are making it possible for the private sector. Instead of you investing in brick and mortar, we are investing in brick and mortar for you. We will also put in, hopefully, the common user facilities. It is now you who should operationalize, do the value addition program, and then we will work with you on finding the routes to market. Because already we are putting up 400 markets across Kenya that have cold room facilities, that have, and many of them have begun to be finalized now. So there is an opportunity that we have built, the market infrastructure we have built, but the software and the know-how and the operationalization will be done by the private sector. And I hope, Carol, you're sensitizing your members to take advantage of these facilities and operationalize them as we encourage primary value addition agro-processing capabilities across the country. And so it is with the special economic zones, the 6 special economic zones that we have put money in Busia, in Eldoret, in Nakuru, in Sagana, in Thika, all the way to Mombasa. Just for record, in October, I will be going to the special economic zone in Vipingo. We have agreed with Afri-Exim Bank that we begin the journey in Dongokundu before the end of this year to put the horizontal infrastructure, and also in early next year in Naivasha. They have provided the resources, we have provided the land, we have signed the agreements, and we want, as we roll out the horizontal infrastructure, the private sector must organize themselves to take advantage of these facilities so that, again, we can drive the whole manufacturing, processing, value addition space into the future. These are interventions that government can only do a fraction, but the real people to operationalize these spaces is the private sector. And if there is anything that we can do to add into that space, including what KDIC will be doing, we will be happy to do it.
Thank you very much. I'll move to the ICT sector on progress in terms of the issues that were discussed. One of the issues was the KRA to really sensitize SMEs on the e-teams through their member associations. This is work that is ongoing and sensitization is happening. So that is helping, and you're not hearing a lot of noise now on the e-teams because there's sensitization. Then there was the other issue of a policy around implementation of the sectors, especially the startups, being that don't survive because of just the changes on funding and all that, and being able to list even on NSC. And this, we really want to thank the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of SMEs because of the startup bill, and that will address that challenge so that funding issues and being able to grow and list on NSC. So again, that is done. So there's no more work to be done there. I think it's just the implementation of that. And then on the data protection laws and regulation harmonization across the EAC, that's in progress. The Secretariat has been established and Kenya is represented. So we are monitoring that as we go along. Then on the energy costs, especially the lack of ICT specific tariff, recognition of the Communication Authority as the only license issuing authority, discussions are ongoing. So we are still having discussions on what that will look like. So it's not complete, but at least there's work going on the review of the tariff of the lift on the power purchasing agreement, especially on energy, that was uplifted and then reinstated. So we are going again into the discussions to see how do we deal with that issue, because we've gone a bit back and forth on it, but at least the discussions are going on. Of the power purchasing agreement moratorium on energy. So it was first lifted and then again it was reinstated. I think it was Parliament, yes. Yeah, so sometimes there are, and I know you're challenging, Your Excellency, because there are things we'll agree here and then they'll change in Parliament. So we have to keep going back and forth a little bit. And maybe in the roundtable in December is also to have representatives of Parliament on some of these key issues. And it's so that we can have an agreement together.
But on that particular matter, despite, I think Parliament has overstepped its mandate. I mean, Parliament should not be deciding matters to do with executive functions. We cannot, we are operating at the edge. I think last month we had the highest peak consumption in Kenya's history, a new high, because of all the things you people are doing in industry and others. And we certainly need another 5,000 megawatts into our grid sooner than later. 3,000 where we are, 3,500 where we are now is very constricted. And I have given instructions to the Ministry of Energy, and I've given them policy direction. In spite of what Parliament has done, we have opened up that space for power purchase agreements, and we are already negotiating with many of the players in that section. We are also looking at other power alternatives, including nuclear energy and all the other power sources. So that conversation is going on. My direction to the Ministry of Energy is very clear, because there are industries that cannot come and set up in Kenya merely because they look at our grid, they possibly could need 1,000 megawatts and they can't find it. So they go and look for other different destinations. So we are reorganizing that space, and just give me a bit of time, and I think we will have a clearer, because by God's grace, before 2030, we should have doubled. And 2030 is not very far. Maybe, yeah, we should have doubled the grid that we have. So, and that is and we should try and do it with renewable energy as much as possible. So I think that is that. But just to give you comfort, in spite of the parliamentary things, we are clear on how that is going.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. We're also meeting them for a roundtable in October, so we'll also keep sensitizing them on the need to really not go back and forth on some of these agreements. On the issue of the high ICT power users unable to directly contract power offtake from IPPs, this, though we discussed and didn't have a resolution, what has been done, which we are very grateful about, is the Energy Electricity Market Bulk Supply and Open Access Regulations 2024 that has now legally allowed ICT companies and other high energy users to contract directly with IPPs through the power wheeling arrangements. And that's very commendable, and we're very grateful to the government on that. On counties overstepping their roles in overseeing ICT build and lack of efficiency and at times repetitive taxes for one service. So as KEPSA, we're engaging them in the formulation of the regulations operationalization, the County Licensing and Uniform Procedures Act. So hopefully once that's done, this will stop being an issue. And then the recognition of infrastructure sharing best practices that allow other utilities to share and facilitate the quick deployment of ICTs. We didn't really reach a resolution here, and so we really need to do that. And what we think is establish a policy to promote infrastructure sharing for ICT infrastructure. So I think that's what our recommendation would be, because we didn't really get to this to resolve this issue in the last ICT. The recognition of infrastructure sharing best practices allows utilities that share and facilitate the deployment of ICT. So that each person, and I don't know who is here from ICT, you find that they dig up to put one thing, then someone else comes and digs up to put another thing, instead of all sharing the related facilities on one. So just a policy on that. It will also make our roads and our environment a bit more tidy. So that's been an issue. So everyone comes in and has to pay a different license and all that. Then on the ICT infrastructure, such as fiber and towers, are not classified as critical infrastructure. So what is done, there was a review of the building code under the Ministry of Lands and Housing, and held the building code as reviewed and gazetted. So that's done. So that's not an issue. But we're also discussing the critical infrastructure bill on the ongoing in the National Assembly Department of Committee of ICT, so that apart from the policy in the ministry, we have it as an act of parliament. And then the review.
I think you should just report it as progress.
Just the progress.
We've done,
Yes.
we have done what we committed.
Yes.
In short.
Yes. Yes.
And we've done what we committed on two things, which you have said. Number one, you have said that on the matter of people who want to directly, either generate their own energy and use it for their facilities, or work with those who generate the IPPs, the independent power producers, and directly have a relationship with them. Initially, the law did not agree, did not recognize and did not allow. So what we did, we changed the regulation, and the regulations have the power of the law. So the regulations now gives independent power producers to engage directly with consumers who want to do that. So what I committed to you, we have delivered.
You have done it, yes. That's what I said, that's done.
So that one is done.
Yes.
We also, on this subject of recognizing the towers and all this, we've also changed the law to recognize it.
You've done the policy, it's
Yes.
done. So we're just waiting now for Parliament, who are engaging to make it an act.
To make it an act.
Yes.
So the policy has
Done.
been done.
Yes.
So that we have achieved.
Yes.
And finally, on this sharing of critical infrastructure,
The shared infrastructure. of
what
ICT.
we did, and maybe we can upgrade it, we decided ourselves that we are not going to be digging trenches all over the place. We decided to use the infrastructure that is available in Kenya Power. As you notice, we have lifted all our ICT infrastructure from ground to the Kenya Power poles. It's a neater. It has a much more robust infrastructure. You don't have to dig nowhere, and yet there is power everywhere. And as we deliver power, we are delivering ICT infrastructure.
Yes.
We will be happy, and I will, maybe somebody will pick up from here, Eden, so that we can get the ICT ministry to see whether the industry also wants to piggyback on what we are doing with Kenya Power. And that should be fine with us. We should be able to share that infrastructure the way we wanted to share the digging.
Yes, thank you very much. That will be very, very helpful. The other one that we had agreed on ICT, as I move on to financial sector, there are many others, they are all done, but we'll pass it to everyone to see, so that I don't have to read all the ones that are done, but many are done on ICT. And I think the only one that is in progress is on VAT refunds. I think that's across the board. So I think we'll just agree as we agreed on VAT refunds. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. On the partnerships between the tech institutions and the private sector, again, that's done, and there's a bill in process that is going to be tabled next week to just allow that partnership to happen. So let me move to finance sector, just in the interest of time, but because a lot of the other things in ICT are done or are progressing well, so there's nothing really to look at. On the financial sector, the national government to spend on salaries to be reduced to 30%. I think that's in progress. You've really committed on how the public service will work, and I think you gave a 3-year commitment on that. So that's work in progress, and I think that really is appreciated. Again, on the other thing on the financial sector was enhancing and prioritizing commercial land transactions on Athi-Sasa at land registries. So they, because what the finance sector was saying, they are not able to finalize transactions with clients because of that backlog. So there's work in progress on the platform. And so that has really reduced the pressure. And I think once that's complete, then we'll be able to see better movement on that. The other one I would maybe touch on the financial sector was the issue to firm up the fiscal policy and regulatory intervention to support green finance and green bonds. One of the things that was done last year, after this, we held a consultative meeting with KEPRO to discuss the opportunities in green finance and explore ways. And we have also undertaken a partnership with Partnership for G, which is a global partnership which has provided valuable support in helping members to do that. And I think we saw one of our members, Akon Holdings, successfully listing in the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So again, that's a success that we are very, very grateful about. On the policy stability and clarity on environment and climate-related ease of cost of doing business to spur green financing, what's in progress is that there's engaging the relevant ministries and that newly gazetted environment regulations provide policy stability and clarity to support green financing, and the extended producer responsibility regulations, water quality regulations. So all those now are in place, the regulations. So now it's just engaging the different ministries and working with the private sector. So again, that's done from that time. I will not go again into the details of the other financial ones because a lot of them are in good progress and most of them are done. I think I'll just touch now on agriculture.
I think just to mention to you, Carol, we did gazette all the regulations about extended producer responsibility.
Yes.
Because it was necessary for us to stabilize that space and to also position Kenya appropriately to benefit from green finance. I think the regulations have now come into force.
Yes.
And we are now working with industry to make sure that importers are sensitive to where their products eventually end. And that end must have a mechanism for making sure that they don't destroy the environment. So I think that has been, we agreed here that we should have a proper legal environment that positions Kenya appropriately. That has been done.
Yes.
We passed the regulations, I think 3-4 months ago. Now the NEMA is in charge, is the implementing agency, and we can credibly, position Kenya in that space as a climate sensitive destination. What I think I would ask industry is for all of us to respect and to work with the regulations as they have been passed. We should avoid the short-circuiting again in that space so that we can position the country appropriately and we can benefit from green finance, which is a big pool of resources that we can make available for not just the public, but also for the private sector to benefit from funding. So I'm happy that there was agreement, there was public participation, and there was agreement in that space. And why I'm saying this is just to get the private sector to also begin to tap into green financing, because you can now credibly assert that Kenya is properly aligned on matters to do with green financing. And therefore, even the private sector should be able to benefit from such resources.
Thank you very much. Yes, and that's why we're very grateful that all the regulations now are done. On agriculture, I'll touch a few. One of the issues that we discussed that time was the reciprocal arrangements with China, Canada, Turkey, and India. Iran for Kenya to access those markets. There were issues like tea and avocado, and we have been informed that the bilateral discussions are ongoing and focusing on enhancing trade relations and exploring these new market opportunities for Kenyan tea especially. And I know for Turkey and India, it was also the exportation of avocado and also the pricing issue. So the bilateral discussions are there, and I know Your Excellency, you committed to talk to some of these key leaders in those countries.
Lee and myself have a progress report.
Thank you.
We have concluded the high-level conversation with China. They have agreed to a reciprocal arrangement between Kenya and China. They have agreed to remove all the tariffs on our tea, on our coffee, on our avocado, and all other agricultural exports. That, I think, is a major breakthrough for us. We are now finalizing the bilateral instruments, and Lee can give us some progress report on that, so that in the next couple of months, we should be able to take advantage of that huge market. It's partly why I have a bit of a problem with some of our friends, but it is what I must do for Kenya. You know, it's in the best interest of Kenya that we get into this market. Some of our friends are complaining that we are doing too much trade with China. Honestly, I mean, you know, when I sat with President Xi, I had a very candid conversation, and I told him that Kenya is importing 600 billion of products from China. Yet we are only exporting maybe 300 or 5%, according to Lee. You know, that trade imbalance is serious. And that is the reason why they have opened up their market for our agricultural products. And that is good for Kenya, you know, and that's the right thing to do as somebody who was sent by the private sector to go and negotiate those markets. I thought you gave me instructions to go and negotiate for this one.
We did. We did. And you did a good job at that. So
Yeah.
very great.
So we are progressing conversations with India. We haven't quite had a breakthrough with India. We haven't quite, we are very good with where we are with Turkey and Canada. And so these are the markets. Can you tell us, Lee, can you tell this audience the progress we've made with access to the Chinese market?
Thank you, Excellency. I think the first thing to note is that China is a 1.4 billion market. Some of their smallest counties, what they call provinces, are probably 140 million people. So if you are to plug even into 1% of our tea and coffee into that market, will completely change the lives of Kenyans. And therefore, as a result of that, the head of state, President William Ruto, made a state visit, and we made it very clear. We are coming for the interests of Kenya. And following that visit, we've had 2 meetings here in Kenya, and we are now finishing the mechanics of how it will operate. Just for you to appreciate how serious the matter was, because Kenya is a middle-level income country, some of our exporters to China have to pay 10%, while our neighboring countries pay 0 because they are low level. So we have importers who take their products to Rwanda and later export it to China as Rwandan product because of that. Now with the removal of that, they can export directly to China. So that's a landmark. And areas like Kajiado and Laikipia are particularly very good for some of the commodities that we are taking there. So, Your Excellency, I want to confirm that we have very good conversations with China, and our conversations around any other country that is trading with us will be based on what's best for Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very exciting news, and that's done. And I think as we look at new markets, we'll continue to ask you to be the brand ambassador for Kenya on those markets. I mentioned 3 others on agriculture, and I think there are many that are in progress, and I think under the MSF, the Ministerial Stakeholder of Agriculture, will try and progress as all the others so that we can report as done in December. But let me just mention one that is done, that was done under the Finance Act 2025, was reinstating the farm works allowance back to 100% from its current rate of 50%. So that was done under the Finance Act 2025, and so we are grateful about that. The other one was prohibit counties from collection of cess on export commodities, stroke HCD to share cess with counties. That's progress. We have given our proposals as we discussed in the PRT, so we hopefully the counties, and again, I think in the December meeting to be useful to also have the COG present so that we can finalize that. Yes, thank you very much. I think the last one I mentioned in agriculture is we had asked for a grant to be made for the least millers, especially the commercial, to get commercial milling licenses. And we have discussions right now regarding the incentives the millers are looking for enhancing value addition, and especially on the coffee processing as we move to the other sectors. So, because most millers were saying that they are, at this point we had talked about coffee. Yeah, so the millers wanted commercial milling licenses. So the discussions are ongoing with the millers in coffee and the ministry to make sure to see what is needed for them to get the commercial licenses they're asking for. So we'll be able to report that. So a lot of the things that are in progress in agriculture, I think we'll report in December. So what we'll take advantage of is the Ministerial Stakeholder Forum with the Ministry of Agriculture and see how we can progress many of these things. So that's the work, Your Excellency, you give John Mwendo and I from Ken Invest to follow up on progress of all the different areas we discussed the last 4 meetings. And as you can see, there's nothing that is not progressing or not done, which is very commendable to government and also working with the private sector where private sector needed to come in. So thank you very much on the progress report. So if you will allow me, I'll move to trade, but maybe you wanted to say something.
Ask Mwenda to speak to some of the progress that we have made. Do you have any specific areas where you want to highlight on in line with what Caro has said?
Thank you, Your Excellency. We don't have anything much because we funnel all the issues that private sector come through with KEPSA. I think the direction you have given that the ministerial stakeholder forums hasten the conversations with the ministry, we possibly will come with better outcomes in December. That's all, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Excellency.
Have you taken note of all the areas that I mentioned here?
Yes, I was taking notes, Your Excellency.
So that we can have a report in December.
Yes, sir.
And we begin working on them as of immediate.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. That is on the progress report. As I said, I think 70% is done and what is in progress. And the few that didn't have progress, you've given direction, so we'll be able to give progress. In the interest of time, we were to look at trade, but we'll look at it very briefly because some of the things that needed to be looked at are in the progress report. So I will start with the chair of KEPSA, who will give us a view as we look at the world where the trade is moving, the new trade order from an international and regional level, what's really happening and what should we look at so that we prepare ourselves. And so I'll ask just Betty to come and do that. And then we'll have only very quick 9 issues on the local trade, and then we'll call it a day after you give resolutions on that.
Thank you, Your Excellency. All protocols observed. I think first and foremost, I want to echo what you said earlier on in your speech. The Kenyan microeconomic indicators are all very, very positive. Yes, the exchange rate is stable. Forex reserves are 11 billion. Kenya is the 6th largest economy in Africa. Interest rates are down. FDI inflows are higher than ever before. Inflation is controlled. Bravo. You've done really well. And yes, as a private sector, we recognize what you've done. And one stat that you did not read out is that last year our exports went up by $1 billion. $1 billion with 200,000 new jobs was not mentioned. So unfortunately, Your Excellency, we beat ourselves too much and we don't talk about the good things that Kenya is doing and the good things that the administration is doing. We talk about the bad news. And even if you look at our media today, front page news, it's actually stale news. It's not new news. You know, it's really not news for the day. And it talks about all sorts of things. And I think the private sector, where our media council is our members, they need to start looking at the information that comes out of front page. Is it really valid in August the 6th? And that was the news of 4th of May. 2 months have gone by, and that was a reaction to a trip that you made, which we just discussed a few minutes ago. So really, it also is an issue that we need to sensitize ourselves and come up with the right news. So looking at the macroeconomic dynamics, everything is perfect in Kenya right now as we speak as a private sector. But I think one big disconnect and the only negativity is that macroeconomic indicators are not translating to the microeconomic indicators. And I think that's the next phase. How do we translate that goodness from the macro picture to the micro picture? What do we do different? Because we have a bulging youth, we have a youth problem, we have an unemployment problem. And that unemployment problem is creating unrest, is creating social peace disruptions, and so on and so forth. So we need to look at all that, because I think that's really the only agenda that we should be talking about, the jobs, jobs, and jobs. Because if we can address the jobs agenda, we'll address the bulging youth agenda, and I think that can bring us a lot of social peace. So if you move forward from Kenya, and let's look at the region, and let's look at East African community, we are 310 million people, $330 billion economy, we are 8 countries. We are continuing to see, after 25 years of being in the East African community, we are seeing a discontent within the member states. We saw what happened to Tanzania last week and what they talked about, what business can be done, and yet it's totally against the ESC protocol, where goods and services and people movement is free. And as the chair of the East African community, which you are this year, I think you probably need to address that maybe in the forthcoming East African Business Council Trade and Investment Forum in October, that we can't have 2 sets of rules. You can't have a rule book for Kenya and a rule book for Tanzania and for Uganda. And I was really shocked yesterday when I looked at the latest tariff book stay of application that came out of Arusha. Uganda has 132 pages, common external tariff distortion out of 520-page book. Tanzania had 79 pages. Kenya had 32 pages. So Kenya is largely playing by the books. Nobody's a saint, but we are only reacting to people who are trying to distort trade in the region. And I think that's something you need to pick it up in your chairmanship of the ESC, that we need to really look at it differently. And we need to start looking at a broader picture. The TFTA, huge opportunity. COMESA, ESC, SADC, 660 million people. And of course, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is 1.5 billion and $3.5 trillion economy. So we see opportunities in the continent, we see opportunities in the region, but yes, the global dynamics have changed forever. In the last 6 months, we've seen the geopolitics take the order of the day. The world trade order has changed. And with that new order, I think protectionism is on the rise. Multilateral rules-based trading system is being questioned. A lot of bilateralism is kicking in. A lot about transactional trade agreements is what is kicking in. So there's a new trade norm that we need to be worried about. And yes, in the next 55 days from today, we will lose the AGOA legislation. The AGOA legislation will expire on the 30th of September 2025. What is the impact of that on Kenya? That's one of the largest exports for us to the US. Apparel alone is $600 million, 66,000 people are in that job space. The good news is that I have just recently visited the Athi River zone, and I've never seen a bigger building site in my life. Everywhere there's a new factory coming up. But they're all coming up with the premise that AGOA will get extended because AGOA is zero rated, and plus the tariff that has been put on us by the US is 10% tariff, so it's 0 plus 10. But if AGOA expires, it'll be MFN plus 10. And if you look at Vietnam, they're on MFN plus 20, Indonesia MFN plus 19, Bangladesh at 20. So our competing countries is where we need to be worried about. I don't think it's the US tariff much more. More worry should be lying on what is going to happen to us. Our competitive and comparative advantage right now is brilliant, but it might diminish very quickly because 9% advantage over Vietnam is not good enough. We as Kenya have done really well. I mean, Hayden did it with ease of doing business. We were at 134. In 3-4 years, we came down to 56. Brilliant. I think we need to work on the cost of doing business so that even if our differential duty is reduced to 10%, we still are competitive. And I think the extra cost of doing business in Kenya is about 15%. So we need to start looking at all that and see how can we work on that one agenda competitiveness. As KEPSA, we've looked at the drivers of competitiveness, and I think by and large, 60% is okay, which is the bill of materials we are all buying at global prices. But what is not okay is the other 4 drivers of competitiveness, which I know we're working on, which is finance, utilities, we talked about it today, logistics, and of course, our labor laws need a total overhaul, which is also part of our discussion we need to have, that how do we move away to unit cost of production as opposed to minimum wage. So a lot of good things happening, a lot of work in progress, but the global dynamics are changing very rapidly, and I think I'm happy that we are looking at alternative markets because we need to survive as a country, and we get punished just because we are developing country as opposed to least developed countries in the region. So I just want to pause there. We have very limited time, but I just wanted to highlight that there is a situation that is unfolding in front of us, which I'm sure you can pick it up bilaterally in the next few weeks and when you're in New York at the UN General Assembly, because 176 executive orders have been signed in the US. I think one more is not a problem for President Trump. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jaz. So, Your Excellency, just to wrap up on the trade sector, there's the ones I've given on progress, but let me ask, and they'll take a minute each just to say. We'll take a commercial break. You can stand and relax a bit.